In today's lesson or session, we start in Genesis chapter 10. Genesis 10 verses 1 to 5. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood. The sons of Japheth: Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. And the sons of Gomer: Ashkenaz, Riphath, Togarmah. And the sons of Javan: Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, Dodanim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. Now Moses, when he wrote the book of Genesis, organized things in a certain way. Before God actually divided mankind up, he wanted to show where everybody came from. And as such, I'm going to start today's commentary. You know, history. Folks, when I went to school, history was boring. The mere sound of this word often sends shivers up and down my spine and some people's spines with memories of real boring school classes. I remember English history. Our King William conquered King Harold and whatever. I mean, weird stuff. And then dates. 1500 and something and 16. You know, I could never memorize these silly things. But the interesting thing is this: history is shaped by genealogies. We just read a whole bunch of names. And as such, verse 1 could summarize chapter 10. These are the generations of the sons of Noah. It's a history of the foundation of almost all of Earth's civilizations from the perspective of the Middle East and Noah's family. Before we get into the genealogies of chapter 10, it is important to note that each time the three sons are mentioned together, they are always mentioned as Shem, Ham, and Japheth. These are found in Genesis 5:32, 6:10, 7:13, 9:18, chapter 10, verse 1, and 1 Chronicles 1, verse 4. Why is this so important? And why should I find this interesting? Could it be that perhaps God ordained it this way according to God's priorities? In Genesis 9:24, we find that Ham is the younger son to both Shem and Japheth. Then in Genesis 10:21, we find that Shem was the brother of Japheth, the elder. Now, according to ancient tradition, the listing of Noah's sons should have been Japheth, Shem, and Ham. In God's list, however, Japheth was listed in the position of the youngest son. Isn't that something? Shem, from whom came Abraham, exudes a heritage of faith, But from Japheth, as we shall see, we have a legacy of intellect. In God's eyes, faith is of much greater value than being an intellectual. Wouldn't you agree? According to verses 2 to 5, Japheth is the father of the Indo-European nations. There are 14 altogether. Gomer was the oldest son of Japheth and father of Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah, whose descendants form most of the population of southeastern Europe and later migrated into the rest of Europe. Magog's descendants were fierce warrior-like people who lived beyond the Caucasian mountains and near the Caspian Sea, and spread out even onward to India. And Madai was the ancestor to the Medes. Before we go on, where did I get this information? Well, we talk about these people in Ezekiel coming down to attack Israel, and Ezekiel 37 to 39, and later on in the book of Revelation. And besides that, I cheated. I looked under Eastman's encyclopedia, biblical encyclopedia. So, Javan now was the fourth son of Japheth. His descendants settled in Greece, otherwise known as Ionia, which bears the name of Javan in Hebrew, Javan. Alexander the Great was called the king of Javan. Javan was universally used by the nations of the East as a generic name of the Greek people. Tubal's descendants became people of Asiatic highland, west of the upper Euphrates. Well, the southern range of the Caucasian Mountains, on the east of the Black Sea. And then we got Meshach. Descendants became the European Russians, known as Muscovs, where we get the word Moscow from, by which they are still generally known throughout the East, Muscovites. Not much is known about Japheth's last son, Tiras. That means that according to the Bible and Easton's Bible dictionary, the people from India and Europe originated from Japheth. There's a variation in features and pigmentation among the Japhethites. Some of the Japhethites, which I call Caucasians, are blacker than the people from Africa. And yet, they have all the features that I, as a Caucasian, have. Protruding nose, and well, you know what I'm talking about. You see, Japhethites have been particularly adept at intellectual and philosophical endeavors and needs. Japheth has applied their peculiar brand of applied philosophy and logic to the religious insights of Shem, the Semites, Hebrews, and developed the science of theology. It wasn't until the Gentiles got in we decided to name it theology, the study of God, and the study of the worship of God. In the same way, Japheth's descendants, like Caucasians, contributed in the application of philosophy and logic that the Hamites were specialists in. And what did we do? The Japhethites, which we are part of, the Caucasians, develop the scientific method. So verse 5, starting in Genesis chapter 10, which we just read, sums up Japheth's genealogy. By these people, by these sons, were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. Note also, these nations, like I mentioned, are later named in Ezekiel 37 to 39, in Daniel and the book of Revelation. And what do? They gang up against the Jewish nation, the Hebrew people, Israel. But folks, the end thereof is God shows himself strong in defending Israel. Let's hope we're part of God's people and not part of the rest of the Japhethites attacking Israel.